Okay, welcome to another edition of Just the Truth. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. President Biden said last night that he struggled to remember certain key dates during his interviews with Special Counsel Robert Hur as a result of the stress of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. He angrily denounced Hur for questioning his memory. Hur called Joe Biden a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. And in the quickly called press conference the Biden team called last night to defend his memory, the president forgot the name of the church his son Beau's funeral was held in. We'll talk more, and we have all the details for you on last night's press conference. Yesterday was a day filled with news headlines. The U.S. Supreme Court held the highly anticipated oral arguments of former President Donald Trump's appeal to remain on the Colorado primary ballot, with justices expressing repeated skepticism that a ruling affirming the Colorado decision would settle the matter. I don't know that it's going to go too well for Colorado. In a disappointing decision, Hawaii's highest court this week ruled that the Second Amendment rights as interpreted by our U.S. Supreme Court and our U.S. Constitution do not extend to Hawaii citizens, citing the spirit of aloha. And an organization that works to raise awareness about the dangers of food allergies says it doesn't see the humor in an Uber Eats commercial that's planned to air during Sunday's Super Bowl. Hope you'll join the conversation today. Your comments are welcome on the Affirming Forward text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. You can leave a quick voice message. Your emails are always welcome. Joey@joeyhudson.com.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Yesterday was not a very good day for Joe Biden and the Biden administration. President Biden presented himself to interviewers as an elderly man with a poor memory, Special Counsel Robert Hur said in his much-anticipated report about his investigation into Joe Biden's retention of classified documents. Hur declined to pursue criminal charges against the president, described how Joe Biden willfully possessed classified information covering important national security matters. The special counsel report details how Joe Biden sat and answered questions. The report provides an assessment of how investigators perceived Joe Biden's mental faculties during the questioning. Hur's report reads like this. We have also considered that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with poor memory. He goes on to write, based on our direct interactions with and observations of him, he is someone for whom many jurors will want to identify reasonable doubt. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. And with that assessment, it appears the special counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, is saying that Joe Biden is too old and forgetful to prosecute, so we just leave him alone. Again, correct me if I'm missing something here. Does this not also verify that Joe Biden is incompetent to serve in the Oval Office? Do we want an, quote, elderly man with a poor memory in the White House? Is this report not just really damning to Joe Biden and any future he may have in the White House? Are Democrats not second-guessing their choice of Joe Biden at this point? Hur made the same assertions about Biden's memory later in the report. The special counsel also described instances where the president forgot when he was vice president and the year that his late son, Beau Biden, passed away. Now, I'm not making light of that because that's a very personal and serious thing to when you talk about a family member whom you've lost. But Joe Biden also always makes a big deal or brings up the fact that many things in his life are influenced by his late son, Beau Biden. And I get that. I understand that. Nothing wrong with that. But when you can't remember, and according to the special prosecutor's report, evidently Joe Biden had trouble remembering when Beau Biden had passed away. Biden forgot significant details from the debate inside the Obama administration over the 2009 Afghanistan surge, according to the report. President Biden said in his statement addressing Hur's report that he cooperated and he took the opportunity to claim that Hur had indicated Biden's case was totally different than what President Donald Trump is being charged with. And Joe Biden went to extreme measures to try to paint a contrast between his case and that of Donald Trump.
This was an exhaustive investigation going back more than 40 years, even into the 1970s when I was still a new United States Senator. The special counsel acknowledged I cooperated completely. I did not throw up any roadblocks. I sought no delays. In fact, I was so determined to give the special counsel what he needed, I went forward with a 5-hour in-person interview over 2 days on October the 8th and 9th of last year, even though Israel had just been attacked by Hamas on the 7th and I was very occupied. It was in the middle of handling an international crisis. I was especially pleased to see special counsel make clear the stark distinction and difference between this case and Mr. Trump's case. The special counsel wrote, and I quote, "Several material distinctions between Mr. Trump's case and Mr. Biden's are clear," continuing to quote, "Most notably, after given multiple chances to return classified documents to avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. According to the indictment, he not only refused to return the documents for many months, he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it. In contrast," he went on to say, "Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives and the Department of Justice, consented to the search of multiple locations, including his home, sat for a voluntary interview, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation," end of quote.
White House spokesperson Ian Sams disputed Hur's account of Joe Biden's memory and cited a letter that the Biden administration sent his office contesting the assertions about the president's memory. Sams wrote on X, "The inappropriate criticisms of the president's memory are inaccurate, gratuitous, and just simply wrong," he said. "We told the special counsel this in our response." So what do you do when you get such a damaging report? And by the way, let me offer a theory here. Do you think Hur really believes that Biden is capable of serving? He realizes that he would be fighting a losing battle if he directly challenges Biden's Department of Justice. So he thought that maybe he would just mortally wound him with this report by suggesting, well, he's just a feeble old man, and his memory is bad, which basically is saying he's not competent to serve as president. So what do you do? In Biden's case, somebody in the White House came up with the bright idea that they would call a last-minute press conference last night. Someone probably had to wake Joe Biden up to let him know what they were about to do. During the press conference, which was meant to defend his memory, Biden does it again. The president mixed up 2 foreign presidents, forgot the name of a church parish within his speech. Again, this was a speech to defend his memory, and he forgets some of the major points. This is why they don't want Joe Biden out campaigning any more than he has to. The news conference was called by the White House. It was originally intended to start around 7:45. It was about 10 minutes late. Not sure. No explanation was given. Those things quite often can be late, except when it's a national address like this one was scheduled to be. Biden addressed a report on the ruling within his case on handling misclassified documents. Although Hur declined to seek further charges against the president, the report was very damaging. During the press conference, Biden began by addressing the heavily talked about comments made regarding his memory, specifically pointing out a reference to recalling Beau Biden's death. It appeared while commenting on the rosary that he wears in memory of his son that he forgot the church parish, which you can hear this awkward pause, this awkward silence, and then he moves on.
Retain these documents. The evidence who said I did not willfully retain these documents. In addition, I know there's some attention paid to some language in the report about my recollection of events. There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business. Let me tell you something. Some of you have commented, I wear since the day he died, every single day, the rosary he got from Our Lady of... Every Memorial Day we hold a service remembering him, attended by friends and family and the people who loved him. I don't need anyone to remind me when he passed away or passed away. Simple truth is I sat for a 5-hour interview over 2 days of events going back 40 years. At the same time...
Now, as Biden continued to discuss the Israeli-Hamas war as president, as he continuously has been pressured by the Democrats to call for a ceasefire in this issue, he talked about recalling a discussion that he had had with the president of Egypt, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, and he labeled him as the president of Mexico. He literally refers to him as the president of Mexico.
As you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side. I've been pushing really hard to get humanitarian assistance into Gaza.
Now, since the release of the text of the report, many political figures, including a lot on the Democrat side, are having additional questions of Biden's mental capabilities as he's seeking to be the Democrat nominee again in 2024, with some calling for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. Wouldn't you have loved to have heard the conversation within the Oval Office on making the decision to put Biden out front, in front of the press last night? Former White House spokesperson and Fox News contributor now, Dana Perino, made a very good point. She said that maybe they should have had him sitting in the Oval Office behind the desk, give the speech, and then he goes back to bed. He walks out of the room, no questions. But I think they wanted to make the point that Biden was not afraid to take questions because it's a full-blown press conference, and you see the images and you watch the video, and you've got all of these reporters like a bunch of people ready to attack him, which they are. I mean, they're all ready to prove their point that he's not capable of answering their questions. And he made the mistake of starting with Peter Doocy.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad I let you speak. That's
your memory has gotten worse, Mr. President?
My memory is not gotten. My memory is fine. My memory. Take a look at what I've done since I've become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Now, as the news conference went on, Biden became even more defiant, seemed to be even more angry, responding very angrily at times. I mean, he just spoke to some of the people asking the questions. Now, again, you got a large group of the press who are just anxious to get their question in, but a very defiant, a very angry Biden, not the look I think that they had intended, that the White House had intended to set out to achieve.
For months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They expressed concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country to be President of the United States and finish the job I started.
Do you believe that? Why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter?
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
But the special counsel said in the
no,
report
he
that he
did not say that.
Okay.
He did not say that.
But Mr. President,
Let me answer your question. The fact of the matter is, what I didn't want repeated, I didn't want him to know, and I didn't read it to him, was I had written a long memorandum to President Obama why we should not be in Afghanistan. And I was multiple pages. And so what I was referring to, I said classified. I should have said should be private, because it was a contact between the president and the vice president as to what was going on. That's what it is referring to. It was not classified information in that document.
Wow. A very angry Joe Biden last night with the news media. Again, I'm not quite sure that was the goal, or that's what they set out to do, or what they set out to accomplish, when someone in the Oval Office yesterday came up with this bright idea that they would put Joe Biden out in front of the press after this very damaging report from Special Counsel Robert Hur. Now, the bottom line is, Hur's not going to recommend criminal charges against the president. There are going to be no charges against Biden for mishandling classified documents, according to the report, after the months-long investigation into Joe Biden's alleged improper retention of classified records. Hur said in his investigation, uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. The materials included marked classified documents about military and foreign policy in Afghanistan and notebooks containing Mr. Biden's handwritten entries about issues of national security and foreign policy implicating sensitive intelligence sources and methods. Hur said FBI agents recovered the materials from the garages, offices, and basement den in Mr. Biden's Wilmington, Delaware home. But Hur said that the evidence does not establish Mr. Biden's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, and remember, he also, in the report, said that Joe Biden was just basically, my words, not his, an old forgetful man. So no reason to charge him. As you can imagine, Republicans and allies of former President Trump were outraged, blasting the Justice Department for a double standard. Trump pleaded not guilty, you may recall, to all 37 felony charges out of Special Counsel Jack Smith's probe. The charges include willful retention of national defense information, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and false statements. That trial is set to begin May 20th of this year, right in the middle of the presidential primary. Are we witnessing a double standard here? Love to get your take on it. Send me a quick note on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. You can leave a voice message. Send me a quick email, joey@joeyhudson.com. There's going to be a lot more to come from this. We're just touching the surface on this situation with Joe Biden, I promise you. Let's move on to something else, because there was a lot of breaking news yesterday. The Supreme Court held the highly anticipated oral argument of former President Trump's appeal to remain on the Colorado primary ballot. I'm going to give you all the details of that in just a moment. First, let me talk with you about your health. more specifically about that excess weight that you're carrying around your waist, that visceral fat that is so dangerous to your health. Do you sometimes eat when you're not hungry? You eat when you're maybe stressed out, or you eat when you're bored. It's called emotional eating. I'm a recovering chocoholic, by the way. I love chocolate. But one of the things that I learned after being introduced to Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition is my relationship with chocolate. Over 3 years ago, I lost 30 pounds pretty quickly, by the way. I started in July. By November or so, I had already lost the 30 pounds. The good news is, over 3 years later, because of what I learned from Dr. Ashley Lucas and her great team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, I've been able to maintain that weight loss. You can too. Don't go back to your old habits after you lose the weight, and the program with PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition will make sure that's the case. The maintenance program is amazing. Let me ask you to make that call right now. I promise you, you will not regret it. 864-252-4925. Go ahead and set up your initial consultation so that you can get started in changing your life and living a more healthy life. 864-252-4925. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. The Supreme Court and the highly anticipated arguments in this case of 6 Colorado voters who have petitioned to remove Donald Trump from their state's ballot. Several times, obviously, very visibly frustrated judges, this lawyer, Jason Clifford Murray, avoided some of the obvious questions from the justices about the consequences of a ruling in his favor. Article 2 gives state broad power to run elections, Mr. Murray argued, and that power involves removing ineligible candidates from the ballot, even in a national election, through the process of their choosing, he said. The justices expressed a lot of skepticism that a ruling affirming the Colorado decision would settle this matter. Let's start with Justice Kagan. She said, why should a single state get to decide who gets to be President of the United States? That means it's quite extraordinary. Mr. Murray said that was not the case because the Supreme Court would ultimately make a decision that could inform all other states to take Colorado's record of fact, largely based on the January 6th Select Committee report. This answer drew several more hypothetical situations of chaos from the justices, who pointed out that states have different processes for adjudicating ballot issues, meaning that several different records of fact and decisions could come before the Supreme Court. Justice Samuel Alito, for example, said, he asked the question, in that case, why should they accept one over the other? Would we have to determine appropriate rule of evidence standard of proof, he said. Would we give any deference to these state court judges, some of whom are elected? Would we have to have our own trial? Mr. Murray answered no, but that the court could do an independent review of Colorado's record. Justice Alito asked what would happen if 2 sets of decisions and records were presented before the court. Mr. Murray could not answer that question. Justice Alito said that he was trying to invite Mr. Murray to, quote, grapple with the consequences of the argument that you're advancing and the potential unmanageable situation that would arise, and Mr. Murray again asked the court to write an opinion affirming the Colorado court's finding that President Donald Trump engaged in insurrection. Justice Brett Kavanaugh asked, what about democracy, the right of people to elect the candidate of their choice, telling Mr. Murray that his position could disenfranchise a great number of voters. Mr. Murray said that Section 3 was intended to protect democracy, such as through preventing President Trump, who he alleged disenfranchised 80 million Americans who'd voted against him, from taking office again. Justice Amy Coney Barrett said, it just doesn't seem like a state call. Again, nothing seemed to be going in this guy's favor, as it should not have. This is a crazy case to have before the court anyway. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson asked Mr. Murray about the lack of uniformity that this decision could create, and Mr. Murray again answered that the Supreme Court could write an opinion that could create uniformity. The justice responded saying, I understand that we could resolve it for uniformity, but asked why he thought that the framers would design a situation that would create an interim of great difference in the meantime. Mr. Murray said that their primary concern was that insurrectionists would not hold office, and it was weird to say states can't enforce Section 3 to that effect. Justice Clarence Thomas then said that he was aware of the many examples of states using Section 3 to bar insurrectionists from state offices in the wake of the Civil War, and asked Mr. Murray to provide cases of states doing the same with national candidates. Of course, he had none because it's never happened. Justice Thomas was skeptical that Section 3 was intended so as to allow the South to block a national candidate. Justice Kavanaugh then suggested that Mr. Murray was looking for legal authority in the wrong place, that the 14th Amendment was meant to augment state powers, and Section 3 did not mention state powers at all, he said. Section 5, meanwhile, adds that Congress has the authority to enact legislation that regards these matters. Mr. Murray answered that Section 5 did not expressly say that only Congress has such powers, but that the authority was implicit. Justice Neil Gorsuch asked Mr. Murray whether he held that state authority to enforce federal elections has to come from constitutional authority, and Mr. Murray seemed to agree. Justice Gorsuch then said that in seeking to enforce Section 3, the authority also needs to come from Section 3. Mr. Murray argued that the authority from Article 2 would allow states to enforce Section 3. Are you following all of this? It's like Section 2, Section 3, Article 14. The arguments, let me just sum it up for you. The arguments that they're making are ludicrous. It was a waste of time, but part of our process. You can't deny someone, I guess, their day in court. Then you had the Colorado Solicitor General Shannon Stevenson argue for the Colorado Secretary of State and largely deferred to Mr. Murray's arguments regarding the legality of Colorado's actions, but brought up the serious threat that Donald Trump has to the nation, that if Colorado banned President Trump, then other states would retaliate and bar other candidates. Justice Alito asked the question. Ms. Stevenson replied, I think we have to have faith in our system that people will follow the election policies and processes appropriately, that they will take realistic views of what insurrection is under the 14th Amendment. I don't think that this court should take those threats too seriously. Justice Alito followed up asking, you don't think that's a serious threat? I think we have to proceed on the assumption that it's not a serious threat. I think we have institutions in place to handle those types of allegations, she argued. Justice Alito asked, what are those institutions? Ms. Stevenson replied, our states. There are electoral rules, the administrators who enforce those rules, the courts that will review these decisions, and up to this court to ultimately review their decisions. Following the court's oral arguments, President Trump, at his Mar-a-Lago residence in Palm Beach, Florida, responded with his statement.
I heard and I watched, and the one thing I'll say is they kept saying about what I said right after the insurrection. Because I think it was an insurrection caused by Nancy Pelosi. This was an insurrection, if it was an insurrection, which there were no guns, there were no anything except for the fact that they shot Ashley Babbitt. Somebody from police force shot Ashley Babbitt. So unnecessary, so sad, so horrible. But there were no guns, there were no anything. But if you take a look at my words, right after, you take a look at my speech from the Rose Garden, which was very shortly after, or you take a look at I'm only on Truth now, but at that time we were tweeting and I was on Twitter. If you take a look at those 5 or 6 tweets, you will see very beautiful, very heartwarming statements. Go home, the police are doing their job, etc., etc. Beautiful statements. If you see my statement made in the Rose Garden, I think you have to watch that.
Think about yesterday for just a moment. So we had a report from one special counsel on the current president of the United States, deeming him an old, forgetful man. And then we had another counsel and a group of citizens from a state, from Colorado, trying to convince the U.S. Supreme Court that they could intentionally delete Donald Trump, who will most likely be the GOP nominee this summer, that they can, as a state, leave him off of their ballot. I mean, what a day, huh? Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-5639. In a very disappointing decision, Hawaii's Supreme Court this week ruled that Second Amendment rights as interpreted by the U.S. Supreme Court do not extend, I should say, to Hawaii citizens, citing the spirit of aloha. You're going to want to hear this one. Let me take a minute to talk with you about Furman Ford. It's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who live here in our community. Take a look around. Corporations have never been more powerful. We have new technologies that we don't really know where it's headed with artificial intelligence, AI, and it's really just changing the game. That's why we need to support our local businesses that are run and owned by people right here in our community. Businesses like Furman Ford. When it comes to getting your next vehicle, let me encourage you to choose Furman Ford in Lawrence. They do business the right way. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line. That means when you stop in, you give them a call, or you send them an email, you'll always have access to a member of the Furman family. They'll help you navigate some of the great deals they have on some of the wonderful selection of pre-owned and new vehicles. If you need service on your vehicle, and by the way, you do not have to have purchased your vehicle from Furman Ford, and it doesn't even have to be a Ford. It can be any make or model. They service all of them, and they do it in a timely manner. Let me encourage you, the next time you need a new vehicle or you need service on your existing vehicle, visit my friends at Furman Ford in Lawrence. Find them online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. In this ruling in Hawaii, which was written by Hawaii Supreme Court Justice Todd Edens, the court determined that states, quote, retain the authority to require individuals to hold proper permits before carrying firearms in the public. The decision also concluded that the Hawaii Constitution broadly does not afford a right to carry firearms in public places for self-defense, further pointing to the spirit of aloha and even quoting HBO's TV drama, The Wire. Here's what they said. Article 1, Section 17 of the Hawaii Constitution mirrors the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, the Supreme Court decision states. We read those words differently than the current United States Supreme Court. We hold that in Hawaii, there is no state constitutional right to carry a firearm in public. The spirit of aloha clashes with a federally mandated lifestyle that lets citizens walk around with deadly weapons during day-to-day activities, they argue. The history of the Hawaiian Islands does not include a society where armed people move about the community to possibly combat the deadly aims of others. The court's opinion further says that the state's government policies curbing certain gun carry rights have preserved peace and tranquility in Hawaii. A free-willing right to carry guns in public degrades other constitutional rights, it argues. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness encompasses a right to freely and safely move in peace and tranquility. In addition, the Hawaii Supreme Court notes a quote from the HBO series, The Wire, that the thing about the old days, they are the old days. Not quite sure what point they were trying to make there. The court's opinion states that it makes no sense for contemporary society to pledge allegiance to the founding era's culture, realities, laws, and understanding of the Constitution. This case that they were arguing dates back to December 2017. when Hawaii citizen Christopher Wilson was arrested and charged with improperly holding a firearm and ammunition in West Maui. The firearm Wilson was arrested carrying was unregistered in Hawaii, and he never obtained or applied for a permit to own the gun. He told police officers that the firearm was purchased in 2013 in the state of Florida. Wilson argued in the court that the charges brought against him violated the Second Amendment. But according to the Reload, the Hawaii High Court explicitly rejected the U.S. Supreme Court's interpretation of the Second Amendment in 2008's District of Columbia versus Heller and 2022's New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which both held that there is a constitutionally protected right to carry firearms. Democrat Hawaii Attorney General Ann Lopez said after the hearing, this is a landmark decision that affirms the constitutionality of crucial gun safety legislation. Gun violence is a serious problem, and common sense tools like licensing and registration have an important role to play in addressing that problem. More broadly, Justice Eden's thoughtful and scholarly opinion for the court provides an important reminder about the crucial role that state courts play in our federal system, she said. We congratulate our friends and partners at the Department of the Prosecuting Attorney for the County of Maui for their work on this very important case. Your comments? 864-477-5639, the Furman Ford text line. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, Ray writes, "Good day, Joey. Based on the report of Biden's classified documents versus Trump's, I would like to welcome you to the People's Democrat Republic of America. All hail our dear leader. Our last hope is November 2024. You're right, Ray. Our only response is to show up at the polling place in November. Tony writes, Joey, I can't understand why Trump keeps nominating these Bush-backed candidates. He should have learned from nominating Bush-backed Bill Barr. Maybe so there, Tony. Good point. Texter says, all the land the Chinese companies and nationals have purchased is probably being filled with the Chinese national illegal immigrants crossing the border. They're compiling the army to take over the country. They purchase farmland so as to starve America out. Do you think it's too late to save America from communism? I used to think this day would never happen in America, but here we are. There's still hope. We can still take our country back. Don't lose hope. Chris says, good morning, Joey. I don't think any foreign interest should have land ownership here at all. Not just the Chinese, but any. Good point there, Chris. Jeff says, Nikki Haley raised $1.7 million in Democrat dollars. Haley's pretty proud of the fact that she, after losing miserably in Nevada this week, that she brought in about close to $2 million in California. We know that Democrats live in California, right? Susan from Hartwell, Nikki Haley has claimed that Trump rigged the Nevada primary against her. I wonder what she'll say about the South Carolina primary after he beats her by at least 20 points. Wonder what the excuse will be. Good question there, Susan from Hartwell. Good to hear from you. Texter, squatters have taken over 1,200 homes in Buckhead, and Fannie's too busy persecuting Trump. And besides, this is redistribution of wealth to her. And there are idiots in this country still planning to vote for bubblehead Biden. Good grief. Good grief is right. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line as well. 864-477-5639. Leave me a quick voice message too. You know, Sunday, part of the Super Bowl tradition is that we watch some of the pricey ads that appear during the breaks and during halftime at the Super Bowl. One of the most anticipated days for special ads of any event, any televised event that I know of. One particular group this year, though, is not seeing the humor in one particular ad. I'll tell you about it in just a moment. First, do you need a new appliance or do you need service? The other day, I went to our refrigerator, opened the door, and the side lights are working, but the overhead lights are not working. I text Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Guess what? They're going to they're going to be at my house this morning to take care of it. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, maybe you did a whole new kitchen remodel, when it comes time to get your appliances, you want them, right? You don't want to have to wait weeks or months to get them. And you want the right ones for the right price for your family. When you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, there's never any shipping or supply issues. They have over 1,500 appliances in stock. Buy today, quite often use today. They'll walk you through the 11,000 square foot warehouse that's full of appliances, and with their expert installation, award-winning service department, and extended warranties, Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they have you covered well after the sale, just like they're taking care of me by servicing my refrigerator today. That's because you're more than just a credit card swipe to the team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They make you part of the family. Let me encourage you. Next time you need a new appliance, head on over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Find them online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. Sunday's the Super Bowl. There's going to be a lot of money spent on some of those 30-second ads that we're going to be watching. An organization that works to raise awareness about the dangers of food allergies says it doesn't see the humor in an Uber Eats commercial that's planned to air during Sunday's Super Bowl. The theme is forgetfulness. At one point, a man who appears to be having an allergic reaction, with his skin breaking out in hives on his face and his eyes are swollen, looks at the label of a jar and he asks, "There's peanuts in peanut butter." And it's like a big question mark, like a light just went off. Later he says, "Oh, it's the primary ingredient." Now, the Food Allergy Research and Education nonprofit has objected, as did the Food Allergy Canada, which called on Uber Eats to edit the bit out. They don't want it showed. They don't want it aired. Dr. Song Poblit of FAIR said, deaths occur due to these forgotten ingredients and exposures every day. And he gives the example of a dancer in New York City who died because peanut was not disclosed as an ingredient. These types of commercials and types of jokes allow kids to think that there's not going to be any harm and it's just going to be funny, he said. The commercial includes in small type the message, "Please do not forget there are peanuts in peanut butter." That doesn't seem to settle anything for these groups. The commercial feature stars, though not in the peanut butter part, Jennifer Aniston, David Schwimmer, and David and Victoria Beckham. Online posts also demanding the commercial be changed. One poster said the commercial was fine until the peanut butter person appeared. How about you switch him out with a guy who forgets that he's diabetic and doesn't take his insulin, or a soldier who has PTSD and forgets his medication, one poster wrote. Nope, those wouldn't be funny either, would they? Uber Eats did not immediately respond to the request to remove the spot. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio to lose weight for the last time. Visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, where are you? Go to joeyhudson.com, click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Just search for Joey Hudson. Send a quick text if you can't find the link, and I'll send it to you. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. We're back again next week. Hope you'll plan to be with us as well. Keep those comments coming via the Furman 4 text line, 864-477-JOEY. Keep the emails coming to joey@joeyhudson.com. Remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control.